Great tip.
Try doing it. Yeah, there you go.
What?
Pro tip.
Glad we got that recorded.
System 7 and go that.
Yeah, okay.
Are you in security?
Find it out.
Okay.
All right, great. So what I want to talk about, what I'm here to talk about is 3D game development with React. So I know this is JaxNode. So who's a React? Like, do you know the basics of React? Okay. All right, cool. And then this library here, Three.js, has been around for a long time. And that was like one of the first things I came across as a beginner JavaScript developer. Just loved, I've always loved game development, especially 3D. And so now there is a React renderer for Three.js. And it's gotten so popular. There's a community around it called Poimanders, if I said that correct. And there's tons of libraries surrounding it as well. So what I'm going to show is, you know how you have React server components and React Native components. React Native is a renderer for React that renders native iOS or Android views. So similarly, we're going to render 3D elements. And so I'm out of work right now, and I built this project after talking to David about speaking as like a tutorial or a, for beginners to get interested in 3D or game development. And if you know React, this is a great way to learn how you would go about it. So I don't know if you guys want to follow along. I do have this here. If you want to, you can. If you don't have to, no big deal. It's like a series of scenes we'll go through and we'll do stuff. What else can I talk about for a minute? What else? What are you into besides React? Or if you're not into React, what are you into? Anybody?
Well, I've been doing a lot of, over the last 9 years, been doing a lot of mobile development. And then this group in particular, it's like we tend to focus probably a little bit more on the back end stuff with Node. But we do a number of talks every year on front end frameworks and front end technologies as well. But that's why I thought this would be really cool for tonight. But that's personally, it's like I think a lot of people here are into all kinds of different things,
Right.
language models as well.
Yeah, cool. Anybody use Cursor?
The IDE.
Yeah.
No.
I'm gonna download it tonight or later after this was done. I'm like, okay, I need to get on board because.
It's a monthly subscription though.
Oh yeah.
You can download it for free, but there's limits.
Uh,
You can use your own API key, but
He
yeah.
seems to know.
Yeah.
does it use a chat? Yeah, it uses Claude GPT. I think it uses a Gemini model. There's limits to it though, but you can add your own API key or just use your GitHub Copilot subscription.
Yeah, I can't wait. Yeah, for free, right?
I've used it quite a bit for personal projects, and you obviously have to coax it to tell it what you want. You have to be specific, being the one that knowledgeable of what you're trying to do. It can't do that for you, but
Yeah.
it can be very, very useful for spitting out code quickly. So,
Yeah,
or at least getting something started.
yeah,
Maybe the next meetup we're gonna have
yeah.
a talk to us about code editors and, oh, yeah. Yeah.
Are you gonna hold it?
No, I wanna learn.
You know, there's one of my favorite meetups is called Roundtable. And it's just like you have a moderator, you go around the room, you find out what people are interested in, what questions they have. You write them on a list, and then the moderator goes through each like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and the person sharing just goes and looks up links to what people are talking about or the answers people have to the questions. And so there's no actual speaker, but yeah, that was my favorite meetup I ever went to. It was called a Jeffersonian Roundtable.
Mm,
I want to bring it back one day, but
Hmm.
I don't know. Usually the meetups aren't big enough, but this one actually has the people that would make it kind of cool. Actually, ChatGPT helped me today, but I didn't use it. I was working on material UI, and they had to do with slot props and slot and customize like this text input on a date field.
mm,
So I was stuck on it for a day, and I called up another developer with less experience, and like we start troubleshooting, and we're slowly getting to all the things I tackled over the course of a day or two. And I was like, yeah, I wonder what ChatGPT would say to this. And he's like, oh, well, full disclosure, I've been using ChatGPT for some of this. And I'm like, oh. And then it spit out some code that got me to my next step that I needed to get to. And then 3 hours later, I was completely fixed. And the solution went from like 25 lines with slot props to 30 lines with slots to 1 line with a different solution. But that the code snippet from ChatGPT got me past that kind of stuck area. 'Cause
mm,
Material UI is made by smart people who
They found it
don't
Google.
put out a lot of examples.
mhm.
Hmm. Yeah.
Cool. Cool.
There's this, UI library called Magic UI. And if you want to pull up on the screen, you can. It's a really cool UI library that focuses on, maybe on one dude. Yeah. That first one right there, if you look at some of the UI libraries or UI components, it's very, I wouldn't say futuristic, but more modern. This is not by far my favorite, UI library. We was Steel Williams. They also have full-on website templates.
Does he use AI?
No.
Okay.
It's one of those things where you just import it in with NPM. There's been about one dude, I contacted him, and he's like he worked for NVIDIA, for GeForce Now. I think he worked for Shopify. He quit all that to work for this, or to work on this, and it seems like it's going well for him right now.
Nice. Very cool. Hmm. All right, well, we can see where I can put this thing. All right. All right, so are we ready? Let's do it. All right, so we have a prompt that says, why is it so dark in here? And the component we're looking at here is what is being rendered. The sauce here is what's doing this typewriter and the edit button. So everything inside is going to be rendered, right? So if I uncomment stars and save, we have stars. And this is coming from one of those libraries from the Poimanders community. It's rendering a bunch of points, just random points that are being animated. Let's check out the sky. And this is a shader, WebGL shader, inside of a box, a big box. We'll see later. So I just wanted to show that briefly. So isn't that cool? You have 3D components coming from a library with one line. So how do we look around? It's another component from that same library. It's called Dre. And Three.js has for a long time had these things called orbit controls, and it just got really bad and over time. And so somebody built a better version of that.
It got bad because it got complex.
I think so, probably over time, just tried to do too much. And this is just a complete re-implementation of it. Camera controls. And if I put the sky back, we can see what that actually is. All right. So yeah, there's a shader on each side of this cube on the inside, rendering that. And you can, like a prop here for the position of the sun. It'll move around. And in a game that I've actually been working on to release, like a real game built with React, I have used this exact component to do that. To make the sun actually move over time. So it's like time in the game progresses and the sun moves in position. All right, where's the ground?
So is your edit code button actually clicking on the tab for you?
Yeah, there's a link in there, like a deep link, like what's it called?
It's using, it looks like it's using an absolute path, as opposed to a relative path.
And the default.
In other words, it tries to open up the
Yeah.
file on your laptop.
Yeah, it's got the VS Code : / you know. All right, so this is what like the base, the primitive components are. You see how it's a lowercase m, it's not a uppercase. That is React 3 fiber at work. It sees that and it renders a mesh object in the Three.js world. So this is the beauty of React. Like React can be used for a lot of things. So anyway, in 3D, a mesh is like a bunch of points connected by lines that make triangles, that make shapes, or anything. And inside it, we have the geometry of the mesh. It's a cylinder and a material colored green. All right. And that's what it looks like. So below that is the directional light that really makes this look good. If I comment the lights out here, we get nothing, no light, no color. These are pretty good to use together for an outdoor scene, directional and hemisphere light. All right, cool. I think this is, yeah, physics next. So let me click edit here. Similar scene, we got the sky, we got a bunch of balls, and this rigid body component is coming from a different library here. This is React 3 Rapier. Rapier is a physics library written in Rust and using WebAssembly. There's a JavaScript library, and on top of that, there's a React 3 library on top of the JavaScript library.
Is Rapier, this is probably the obvious, but is Rapier multi-threaded? Do you know if it's multi-threaded?
I don't know. That's a great question.
Yeah, because anytime you're doing this, that you probably need to go off on another core. So, just curious.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for mentioning that. I meant to ask, is anyone into 3D or into game development? Or you are? Okay, sweet. That's very cool.
Browser doesn't have a full GPU access. It's like a security thing. Yeah, I think Chrome updated it where the browser Chromium has more access to the GPU resources. Back then you didn't have much access. It's like some security thing.
Hmm.
I haven't tried it with a straight up like Electron app yet.
Yeah.
That's an entirely different discussion, but yeah. Just curious.
Yeah, that's cool. I'll have to, yeah, maybe we can look it up. I don't know.
I imagine with the GPU, I know that like Chrome, just as an example, one of the things they're doing now in Chrome is they actually have a version of Gemini. I think they've embedded into Chrome.
Okay.
I'm not sure if it's like you have to opt into it, but in order for a large language model to really work efficiently, it needs either an NPU or a GPU. So I'd be surprised if they didn't do more to improve that.
Yeah.
So they're building more of those features into the browser now.
I just know you don't want this to be uploaded onto your main thread on your CPU unless you want to cook it, so.
Yeah. Well, it is using a web worker. We got a nice answer here. So, I mean, back to this, we have the rigid body, which is around the ground, but we have no collider information, which is this commented guy here. So by uncommenting that, now it's going to run again, and we have bouncing walls here.
Beautiful.
It's very cool. Couple of things here, like we have an on collision handler here that's triggering the typewriter. And we're gonna see that some more. All right, so let's make this more like a game scene, right? With some scenery. We got some rocks. And these are 3D models. I got a free asset pack to do this with. And when we go into this rocks component, we can see what that looks like. There's a hook coming from Dre to load the GLTF, which is now, it's pretty new. And as far as I know, GLTF is a new standard for 3D models. And so we just get the information there and drop it into a mesh component where we have to reference some things, but there's another tool to do that. If you don't know it offhand, there's a CLI tool, GLTF JSX, to take any GLTF file and it'll spit out some JSX code from it, some React code.
Are the rocks generated randomly or they are all defined in that model supply?
Yeah, they're all in this hard coded or hard modeled. And so back to the scene. We got trees and tall trees behind it. And like we're just rendering React components here. This is just a list of 100 of them. We've got rigid bodies on them as well. So you can see how React helps compose 3D worlds very nicely. It's almost meant to be, in my opinion. Like, can't wait to see more people doing this.
You edit terrain too.
Edit what? Terrain? Yeah, yeah, we have a simple cylinder ground and but there's everything.
At dips.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's everything that Three.js can do can be done here with React 3 Fiber. All right. So this next bit here is it's a primitive because there's so much parts to this mesh. Let me just load it here. Refresh. All right. There's so many parts to this character that it's easier to just say take the whole scene out of the GLTF and render it as a primitive object. In Three.js, that's just what it's called. So we also see the animation here is pretty simple with this library. You can just trigger an animation with a use effect. But we're gonna actually make a game here. So let's get more serious. We're gonna pull in another library. This is a project from somebody. I came across EC control in the Discord and it works really well. When I was building my game like 4 or 5 years ago now, it didn't exist. But I would probably use it today if I were to start a new game. It's a complete character controller. There's a physics capsule collider inside there. You can kind of see the bottom down here, this red line, is showing that he has collisions. If I can't run through this rock, for example, right? And we can jump. And we can do things that's picking up something, throwing, and we can lay down.
Just out of curiosity, do you know how these models were created?
I don't, I just downloaded the pack.
I didn't know if there's a certain application. I know there's a tool there's tools like Blender, which are
Yeah.
open source. I
Mm.
didn't know if they built this with Blender or not, but that's pretty amazing.
They could have. Yeah, I do use Blender myself for modeling. I'm not very good at modeling, but it gets the job done. So check this out as well. These keyboard controls are coming from Dre. EC control is built, with that in mind. And we just define some stuff and pass it in as a prop or as a prop to keyboard controls, and it's using React context to see that. All right. I might be going a little faster than I thought. I don't know. So we're about ready to fight here. What we need is an enemy. There he is. All right, so press F to slash. Cool. All right, let me see what's going on here. So there really isn't a handy library, as far as I know, for NPCs and enemies and that kind of thing. There's been some work in that area, but I don't think it's that great, or at least it doesn't really do a whole lot yet. There's navigation libraries. They're just not built up quite to the point where someone like me could just use it. So there's more work to be done in the like 3D navigation and NPC, like AI type of things. So anyway, ready? See what we can do. Let's go in for the kill. Wham! All right. All right. So there's nothing to uncomment here, because there's quite a lot actually going on just to do that one thing. And by quite a lot, from a game development standpoint, there's not really that much. But there is a lot to talk about as far as this React component goes. So first off, we have a status of the minion. It's pretty simple. We got idle, dying, and dead. We run an effect, an animation effect on that status. So that's one piece of it. The other piece is how we're dealing the damage, how that's being triggered. So because of the sword animation, when he swings the sword, it's not an immediate, like when you hit the key, that's not when you want to do the damage to the minion. So this hook waits, it listens to that animation being played, and then it returns true after 700 milliseconds. That's just like the right time, you know, the timing of it, bam. And then it turns off 100 milliseconds later. And if you look here, there's a box showing up, boom, for a second. See that? And so that's what's happening here is we are rendering a collider that is a sensor, doesn't have any physical properties. It's just a like a listener. And then for the minion, down here is the model, the minion model. We have the cylinder collider with an intersection enter. So it is listening for that sword collider. Bang. And we do some math here, a little vector math, and apply a impulse to him to get him to fly back and set his status to dying, and that triggers that animation, right?
Does that intersection enter, create the hitbox that's around him?
The cylinder is on him, and it's listening for this one here, the sword collider. He's a child of the character controller, so it's going to move around in the scene, and it's going to be exactly where the sword is because it's a child. And that, and that's a really cool thing there.
The cylinder that's around the villain, that's on line 69?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's got this intersection enter listener, and we can say, oh, is it the sword that's coming in here? We get its own collider is the target, and whatever else collides with it is, it could be anything, right? So we're saying we only care about the sword. Bang. All right. You might want to run. Okay. Um, he now is aware of, if we can get away from him, maybe he won't care so much. Right? So you can see there's another collider around there. That is another sensor. When the character walks in, he follows him around and he's faster. No, I don't know. And we just get into some kind of argument. All right. The code that's doing that here, here's another hook from React 3 Fiber. Anytime you want to do something like every frame, 60 frames a second, you have use frame. And so inside here is what's making him move around towards the character. Similar to when the sword hits, apply impulse from Rapier. We're just giving him the right direction to go and the look at to make him look. We added a status. To the minion, right? And that's it. It's like pure React. And we're able to get this far with 160 lines. I think that's really awesome. And this is as far as I got with this project up to yesterday. And there's plenty, more to go. I think if maybe we'll do another come back for another one with more a part two. Yeah, part two. So I will just cut from there to a full on a mostly complete for the most part game with very similar concepts, all in React. It's also mobile friendly. We have like React components, like our actual locations in the game. Objects in the game are React components. Oh, thank you. All right, yeah, so this has that sky component that we looked at, but we're animating the sun actually to move, and we've got more stuff going on here.
Hi there, I'm Sally. Hi there, I'm Sally.
My daughter. What's up, fam? What can I get for you? This is the extent of my 3D modeling. Can you see it? That's where we're gonna go to work. skills. No money, no skills. I was hoping for it one. Somebody in there. All right, we gotta go. The lighting changes dynamically. We got the day is over. Um, we can go home. I just want to show you home is over here. I'm going here. Got them. Um, that's gonna be health. We don't have a fighting system yet. So, I mean, cool that I just started working on that with the project, you know. This 5 years. I mean, not full time, but there's a lot more in the community now that there wasn't 5 years ago. I think, I don't know if you guys want to see more, but we got music. Hey, got me. FL Studio, Fruity Loops. Fruity Loops. I pirated it when I was a kid, but I bought it when I was able to.
Bring everything to leave. But, I can read that. And like,
Oh, oh yeah, it does it. It's a lot of hip hop music was made or is made with it. Electronic and electronic, a lot of dance. But very much like Sick RPG, the original. Time runs out. You have to make the most of your days. You guys probably don't want to watch me play this game for like 30 minutes, but what ends up happening is you have to get all the way up to that obby at the top. You get a hoverboard, similar to the skateboard, from this guy. And you just work your life away after that.
well, we call it Minecraft.
Mhm.
Yeah. So like she had like. She was building like.
Yeah.
Like, I think, it reminds me of like, right here, members do video, but, the money for nothing video for dire straits, like, all the 3D animated characters and stuff like that.
Cool. My family loves watching Minecraft animation.
Yeah.
Yeah. The egg, you heard of the egg?
Yeah.
Well, does anyone have questions on this stuff? Or anything that I didn't talk about that you're curious?
So like, when it comes to like, you had a number of examples in there, on setting up the scene and everything like that. I was curious if there's like the order makes difference. So like when you are setting up like a scene, for example, you'll have like a mesh and a control and stuff like that. Is there a specific order that those need to be in, or can they be in any order?
Yeah, there is child-parent relationships between, if it's a 3D object, which most things are, even if it's not like visual. There's going to be like an object that represents some piece of logic, like a manager of the clouds, or something that spawns things into the world. It has to exist in the scene. And that's one thing I didn't talk about is, we can go back to this project, the actual root of this app. Why don't we just look at that? First is the canvas coming from React 3 Fiber. And that is where you set up enabling shadows, an initial camera position. There's options on the actual WebGL renderer. And then anything inside that, I mean, any Three.js objects have to be a child of that, as well as the physics world. You know how we were talking about it's running in a web worker, the physics. It has its own world representation. So all those colliders that we were rendering, they're not Three.js components, they're Rapier components. However, there's a synchronization going on. So what else? Yeah.
Their logo as the exit game icon.
Yeah. Yeah. They're all emojis, all the icons.
Cool.
They're just emojis, yeah. My 2D skills are pretty poor as well. So, yeah, and the hearts emojis.
I guess, I
So-
mean, like, that's a good like, replacement for sprites.
Mhm.
I know, sprites are very popular in game development, especially 2D game development. But here, you're using emojis as a replacement
Yeah,
for sprites.
yeah, just to progress. When you go, when you do stuff in the game, that's where I did do some 2D animation with a tool called Sprite. And that right there, there's like, I don't know, 5 frames in that pixel art. And that's just a React, or that's just the HTML image component, or I think I might have made it a video component.
So when you actually go to run this in the browser, is there like what's the build step to get the essentially the different game items or whatever, I guess, converted into WebAssembly? So I'm assuming that it gets converted to WebAssembly, and then WebAssembly is used in the browser, and this is pure like TypeScript.
Yeah, it's just the physics running
Physics engine,
in
it's using web stuff. Okay.
Web
Everything
assembly.
else is just standard React.
Mhm.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's all running on the JavaScript thread, except for the physics. There is work, or there are some projects that do like the rendering in a web worker as well.
That seems to be pretty formative for, I mean,
Yeah,
the models themselves don't seem like, they're that, I mean, like the stickman and stuff like that, they seem fairly,
low poly.
yes, low
Low-
polygon count, something
Yeah.
like that, but it's using Three.js or whatever to render all that stuff.
Yeah. Three.js, really, I was just reading about this. The guy who wrote React 3 Fiber, his name's Paul Hinshaw, and he was arguing, or not, someone was, saying, hey, we really shouldn't be doing a whole lot with JavaScript, there's all these other ways of doing it. But he's saying, with React 3 Fiber on top of Three.js, it gives you a huge advantage, performance wise, because React is actually really good at doing the diffs between, the virtual DOM or the virtual Three.js scene. It's actually great to use it instead of just raw Three.js. Like if you look at other projects with Three.js, is spaghetti code most of the time. It's just like it procedural,
Yeah.
build this object up, do all these things, and finally we get like to the end of all the code and there's, something up with React, it's React, it's declarative, and logic can be separate from it. I don't know, there's a lot to talk about there, but I think we talked
It's
enough.
integrated into the main app too, because we did also think it's with Three.js. It's gonna be separate from everything else that you made in the application. But this is like really all, because like I work a lot with like science research and like trying to visualize. And I really like this because it means that if I'm visualizing something in the browser, it's not gonna be separate from the rest of the application, like the rest of the React app.
Yeah.
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 And then also the organization thing too.
Mm-hmm.
I'm working with something with Three.js now. And I first started to force myself to have some good standards. But then I see that like, because you're using React, you kind of have to use like the component model.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've kept this pretty flat as far as organization goes. There's not many folders here because these are all like they're all just game objects, individual things. If I am reusing something or there's just a lot of things to the topic, like player, there's a lot that goes, like half the game logic is dealing with the player, so there's a lot there. But yeah, it makes it way easier to think, kind of like are you familiar with Unity 3D?
Yes.
Or like
Yeah.
like organization in game development is a problem. It's like hard to do, I mean, any project, but you've got a lot of flexibility with React.
Well, I really like the structure of your project where you have these different scenes and like each scene you're adding new capabilities. I think it's a great way to kind of like organize the code. So I'm grateful you kind of put it in that format. I think it's easy to understand.
Thanks. Yeah, it worked out well this way. I wanted to have it in order, the digits there, and then you guys want to see the sauce at all, it's not too bad.
I just like the name of it, sauce.
Yeah. I didn't want to get lost in the sauce.
The use subscribe there. Use tools.
Have you heard of a state management library called Zustan?
Yes,
That is what is going on there. You, anytime you create a Zustan store, you get a hook out of it where you can use some state, some selector of state. But that's not always what you want. You don't always want your React component to render, re-render. And in this example here, we're listening for a change within the effect. We've got a handler.
state management's a whole nother presentation.
Yeah,
That we're using to stand at my company now.
awesome.
I've used a couple of different ones in React, but it's my favorite one that I've used so far.
Cool. I love it too. I mean,
Yeah.
it's much simpler. It's just
Yeah.
simple, you know? And there's Jotoy, a little like offshoot
That
of
one's
it,
supposed to
but
be pretty good. I haven't used that
I haven't
one,
either.
but I think the one application I'm using right now, it's like we're using Zustan for all the newer stuff, but we still have the React use context for doing some of the original stuff in the application. And then there's another one I've used before. That's very popular within the React community. I can't remember what the name of it is now, but it's called Redux. Yeah, Redux. And I'm sure other people here have used Redux.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, it's like the problem I have with Redux is like whenever I start working on a new React project, like one that's already had 7 years of work in it, it's like they're never using the latest version of Redux. They're always using one that's like 2 or 3 versions back, and it's like there's like 18 million files that have, you know, all the business logic buried, and you always have wind up doing this deep dive and stuff like that. I just found Zustan to be much easier for doing that state management.
Yeah.
So
We use a lot of React hook form, and it's tricky because you don't think that it's a state management system, but that is effectively what it is,
yeah,
because it's got form in the name. It tricked me. Like when I was doing it years ago, like I started like 2-3 years ago, it was on a different company. I was trying to use a different state management, like use state or context, and someone said to me like, "Why are you using 2 state management systems?" And I'm like, "What?" And then like the curtain lifted, and it's like, oh, React hook hook has its own state management. That's cool. So like usually if you just stay within like that single management system, the solutions are simpler. Did you stop recording?
No.
I think the TV's just
Okay.
switched off. So.
Yeah, just want to make sure you don't lose the video.
Ah,
It's pretty good.
well, we can wrap up.
Sure, yeah, if you want to do like a part 2 or whatever, the next meeting for this group is tentatively scheduled for February 19th, which will be a Wednesday. So if you want to present again, do a part 2, then we can do that. If somebody else wants to present on February 19th, just let me know. We can get that set up. I'm going to be presenting on a framework called LangChain next month at the Python user group. So I'm going to be spending any extra time I have preparing for that presentation. So I won't be able to do a presentation for next month. So if somebody wants to do another presentation for next month, please let me know.
Okay.
And Matt, thanks for coming out, Matt, because this is extremely cool.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And if somebody's looking to hire a great React developer, Matt's in the market. There's a couple other people here that are also in the job market as well. So Tech Systems is a recruiter. So if anybody's interested in looking at opportunities, please take a minute and talk with the nice people here from Tech Systems.
Yeah, I can hang out for a second. I specialize in recruiting JavaScript engineers. So
Awesome. All right.
Cool. Yeah, thanks, everyone.
And it was cold, are we meeting up somewhere or?
We can meet up somewhere after the meeting.
Down.
Hey.
I added some GitHub issues to your project. Some ideas, some ideas of like
Get
next
to work now.
scenes.